We're going to be posing here, and if you don't have a sign, Eileen, do we still have signs? Oh, we are out of signs, so instead we're going to ask you to do a lot of yelling, because we are out of signs. I think you can all do that.
Good to see you again. How you been?
So just hang tight, and we're going to get started in just a little bit.
Say hi, Mom.
Somebody told me that we're gathering for a rally. Did you hear that too? Woo! Yeah. So we're going to start practicing some of the chants because we want everyone to hear us.
Okay.
So in rhythmic fashion,
Facebook Live person.
I'm going to say my body, you're going to say my choice.
Okay.
I'm going to say my vote, you're going to say my voice.
Okay.
My body.
My choice.
My vote.
My choice.
My body.
My choice.
My vote.
My voice.
My body.
My choice.
My vote.
My voice.
Louder than we can do better than that. They can't hear us even across the street. My body.
My choice.
My vote.
My voice.
My body.
My choice.
My vote.
My voice.
Yes, we're going to get it. We're going to get it. We're going to get it. Let's have a round of applause for all of you.
Westchester.
To stand up for two things I want you to walk away with. Choice and access.
Okay.
Choice and access. That is why we are here. Every American, every woman deserves the right to make choice about her own body. And because we know that we have inequity in our beloved country, every woman, every American needs to have access to safe, legal abortion. And the right medicine and medical care for her reproductive health. So we're about to get started.
Okay.
And I'm going to come back. We're going to do some more chants because we want everybody to know that we stand united together for choice and what else? Access. That was a little weak. Because women that are of means never have a problem with access. So we have to stand up for women that might not have the fiduciary capacity to access. So we're standing for choice and what else? Access. Yes.
All right, thank you everybody so much. It is so great to see everybody here. Oh, and I'm going to go in the white square. All you speakers, go to the white square. All right, so we are here, as I mentioned, masked if you can. There's a lot of us packed in here. We got teenagers waiting to get their vaccines. We got people like me waiting for their boosters. So let's keep everybody safe at this healthcare rally event. So the first person I want to introduce is Jimena Francella, and she's one of the main organizers here from Hispanic Dems at Westchester, and we've also got a lot of great organizers that helped put this event together. If you can find your way up to the stage, we would love to see it.
Thank you everyone for being here. I'm Jimena Francella. I'm the co-lead for Indivisible New Rochelle Women's Team and the co-chair for Hispanic Democrats. We are here to fight for reproductive freedom. Women have died, been butchered to have the right over our bodies. Today we join women and men across the country to ensure that our right to a safe, legal abortion is protected. We demand dignity and respect. We are all united in this purpose, and please join me in thanking 19 remarkable women from all over Westchester, together to put this event in place. Margaret Bradbury, Milagros Lecuona, Jenny Bernard, Dr. Alexandria Connolly, Elizabeth DeBoon, Eileen O'Connor, Jenny Gear, Kim Schneider, Iris LeChoy, Myra Saul, Kate Permit, Deborah Porter, Shannon Powell, Marnie Raven-Marin, Jody Reaver, Elizabeth Scalfidi, Bertie Van Tassel Richards, and Tasha Young.
All right, I've got to introduce Tasha because I've known Tasha for years, and she's one of my sisters. So I got to know Tasha when she was on the steering committee of Indivisible New Rochelle. Let's give it a shout out for all the Indivisibles here. Absolutely. We made a big change 4 years ago, 2 years ago. We're going to keep doing it. Now, Tasha also is the City Council of New York's Majority Leader's Chief of Staff, and that's Lori A. Cumbo. So she's got one of the most powerful positions in New York City, and on her portfolio is land use, access to all sorts of needs like healthcare, so she knows what she's talking about. But she's a Westchester girl, and she is a community activist through and through and has been her whole life while here, and I think since you were conscious? Yes. And so she's very steeped in all sorts of women's groups. She's part of the Westchester Women's Agenda, the Westchester Black Women's Political Caucus, so there's no better person I can think of than Tasha to lead us through this historic event. I mean, look at all of us. How many people do we have here? This is huge. All right, so Tasha, take it away if you're ready.
I'm really a woman who has a uterus, who believes that I need my choice and access to safe and legal abortion and reproductive health medicine. So I just want to share some stats with you, and thank you to my dear sister, my sisters here, who are standing in solidarity with women and girls across America. First, let me start by saying nearly 9 in 10 women will use birth control in their lifetimes. That is a fact. 77% of Americans don't want to see Roe v. Wade overturned. Two-thirds of young people support Medicaid coverage of abortion, even though it is currently prohibited by the Hyde Amendment. 70% of Americans favor ending the global gag rule, which limits reproductive health and rights worldwide. Part of destigmatization is recognizing the prevalence. 1 in 4 American women have had an abortion in their lifetime, so just look around. A quarter of the women here could represent that number. There is no state in the country where banning abortion is popular. Yet since 2011, more than 480 abortion restrictions have been enacted in states making abortion inaccessible for people with low income. Yeah, we can do that. For people with low incomes and Black and brown people already forced to navigate a legacy of racist and discriminatory systems. We must continue to fight for our neighbors across the country. Because we have such a packed agenda, before I introduce our next wonderful speaker, everyone knows and loves someone who has had an abortion. speaker is a dear friend and sister also. Her name is Cheryl Brannon. Cheryl Brannon is the founder of Sister to Sister International. And Sister to Sister International is a nonprofit, non-governmental organization that links women, girls, and families of African descent globally to the resources that connect, advance, and strengthen them. She does this by advocacy, education, and the promotion of African culture. Developing healthy lifestyles is a cornerstone of this organization, and their primary areas of focus include health and wellness, education, and global affairs. The Brannon Solutions Group, which she also heads, promotes health equity locally and globally. Cheryl Brannon, the president, has led campaigns working with the World Health Organization, promoting the Mama Kit, a safe birthing initiative for women in Africa. She has also authored a local Sisters Beating the Odds and Claiming Wellness campaign, now in its 10th year. So without further ado, I would like to introduce my dear sister, a wonderful organizer and leader, Cheryl Brannon.
I am delighted to look out and see so many of you for such an important cause. When we talk about reproductive rights are our rights. Women's rights are human rights. Do you agree? Women's rights are human rights, and human rights are women's rights. Women's rights are human rights, and human rights are women's rights. No justice, no peace, no repro police. Guess what? It's my body, it's my womb, and my choice. Can I get an amen on that? All right. So I'm going to touch on 3 points here with you this afternoon on this wonderful occasion. I'm going to talk to you about reproductive rights. I'm going to touch on voting rights. And then guess what, ladies and gentlemen? I'm going to talk about calling a thing a thing. Can I get an amen about calling a thing a thing? So often we make it this, we make it that. We have alternative facts. Guess what? We need to call a thing a thing. So let me just jump right in. When it comes to reproductive justice, we live here in a democracy, and guess what? We have the opportunity to choose. It's our body. There should not be others. There should not be lawmakers making decisions about our body. So when I heard about the law in Texas, that is absolutely wicked. That law is absolutely wicked. Many of us, they're saying you have 6 weeks, and if you have an abortion within that time frame, they will actually anoint or deputize people to go out almost like with a bounty on your head, and certainly the providers. And guess what? Earn up to $10,000 just for turning you in. Is that awful or is that wicked? Absolutely. That is certainly archaic, and we have to turn back the hands of time on that. Secondly, I want to give a shout out to Senator Andrea Stewart-Cousins. I want to give a shout out to Carl Hasty and all of our leaders in the Senate, all of our lawmakers in the Senate, and all of our lawmakers certainly in the Assembly, because New York is a leader when it comes to pro-choice. New York is a leader when it comes to make a decision about your body and your womb, and that's because of the leadership and certainly all of our wonderful lawmakers. So that said, I also want to touch on another thing, and that is Black maternal health. This just happens to be Black Reproductive Week. And guess what? Black women, when they give birth, when they want to reproduce, they are up to 3 to 4 times more likely to die during birth. And that's not a good thing. I'm sure you would agree with that. So when we talk, yes, give that a hand. So we at Sister to Sister International have a Black initiative, and we're working with various community stakeholders to improve birth outcomes for Black women. Reproductive justice, reproductive rights. So that said, I want to also say that we want to shout out our lawmakers in DC, certainly representing us, who have all passed the Women's Protective Act, Women's Health Protective Act, which is so very important. It's passed the House, now we got to get it past the Senate. Can I get a amen? And talk about the Voting Rights Act. We at Sister to Sister International and the Westchester Black Women's Political Caucus took our group down to the March on Washington. We must pass the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. And guess what? There is a relationship between voter suppression and reproductive suppression. They all go hand in hand. Let me finally say that as it relates to calling a thing, I don't know about you, but when it comes to democracy, I could not believe my eyes when I watched TV back on February 6th and January 6th and saw these people storming the Capitol, knocking down our police, banging on the glass of the Capitol, terrorizing our lawmakers. And this is not a banana republic. This is a democratic beacon. So we have to make sure we continue to stand. So as I wrap up here, I want to say thank you to the organizers, certainly Eileen O'Connor and Margaret and so many others. And I also want to say thank you to all of you for being here, as well as our Sister to Sister International crew and all of the community partners. I say no justice, no repro, no justice, no repro. Together we'll get it done. Thank you so much.
Truly stronger together. Thank you so much, Sister to Sister International, Cheryl Brannon, and all the wonderful sisters that stood alongside her. It is now my distinct honor and pleasure to introduce the newest congressman representing this District 17. My congressman, Mondaire Jones. Just allow me to read his Representative Jones. Representatives that represent our causes and our voices. And I am proud to stand next to this gentleman who goes to Washington and fights for us every single day.
I'm trying to.
You can go online to review his bio. But I want to just say personally how proud and how grateful we are to you for the work that you do on our behalf every day.
I'm getting emotional. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Some people know that I was born across the river in Rockland County, and someone whispered to me, there are even some people here from Rockland County. And the way you can recognize one of those individuals is that they're wearing a shirt that says, a woman's place is in the house and the Senate.
That's right. Woo-hoo!
And it reminded me of the incredible leadership shown by the Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi.
Yeah!
who just led us in passing in the House of Representatives the Women's Health Protection Act last week. Which would formally codify Roe v. Wade and enshrine its protections into law. And I don't think it's any coincidence that the first woman to become Speaker of the House is also the most effective Speaker of the House in the history of this country. And as a member of leadership, I meet with her every single day, and I see how she works miracles for all of us, for the people, as House Democrats say. And I'm so proud that she is at the helm. And of course, the reason we are here is that we know the Supreme Court of the United States. Yeah, boo.
Yeah.
Seriously. That far-right 6-3 majority, that supermajority on the Supreme Court of the United States has shown itself not only to be hostile to democracy, but to be hostile to the laws that even Congress enacts. We have seen the same Supreme Court dismantle the Voting Rights Act, that crown jewel of the civil rights movement. And so, yes, boo. And so I thought to myself, okay, we can pass this law, but what else can we do? And we got to get rid, by the way, of that Jim Crow relic called the filibuster in the United States. So that the Women's Health Protection Act becomes law. But get this, that's not going to change the 6-3 majority on the Supreme Court. So I asked myself, what can we do to change the 6-3 hyper-partisan supermajority?
Expand the
that
court.
is hostile
Expand the
to
court.
fundamental rights of everyone. We know that reproductive care is health care, and that women's rights are human rights, as Hillary Clinton taught us.
Yeah.
So on Thursday, April 15th of this year, I introduced, along with the chair of the Judiciary Committee and the chair of the subcommittee on the courts, the Judiciary Act of 2021, which would add 4 seats to the United States.
Yes! Woohoo!
We must restore balance to the court, and we must save or salvage reproductive freedom for everyone. It is critical to ensuring that everyone in this country and across the globe can live in dignity. Since that introduction, we have seen, as of a poll last month, 91% of Democrats support court expansion, 61% of independents. We are moving the conversation in the right direction. It is what is required to finally save reproductive freedom in this country, and that is what I am fighting for every single day. And my colleague, Jamal Bowman, also supports court expansion. I will always fight alongside you. I will always be a friend and an ally to you. And I am optimistic that we will come out ahead when this fight is over. Thank you so much.
What do we do? Stand up and fight back. What do we do?
Stand up and fight back!
When women's rights are under attack, what do we do?
Stand up and fight back!
Yes. So everything in decency and order, I want to bring up Dr. Alessandra Connolly. Because we have 2 seats. I represent 17 along with many of you, and she represents 16 along with many of you. Thank you so much. Let's give it up. Let's give it up. Come on. This is what democracy looks like.
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 All those guys to get your hands pleasure of introducing to you the conference of NYCD 16. My friend, my brother, my congressman, Jamal Bowman.
It's an honor to be here at White Plains. Mom, dear, thank you for allowing me to be here in your hood. I really appreciate it. I cannot begin without acknowledging the women in my life. For if it weren't for them, I would not be here right now. So first, I want to acknowledge the late, great Pauline Bowman, my mother, who raised me by herself, who set me up to be in this position. I want to bring into this conversation with me my sisters, Dawn Bowman, Denise Bowman, Deanna Bowman, Tanisha Bryant, and my wife, Melissa Oppenheimer, and my daughter, 7-year-old Maya Bowman. Please make some noise for the Bowman. As you can see, if you didn't know, I grew up with all women, no men, so I was very spoiled as a kid growing up. So if I feel like, if I act like I always want to get my way, it's my sister's fault, it's not my fault. But we have to call it what it is, right? It's an honor to be here with you. Thank you for your organizing, your strategizing, and your mobilizing. Thank you for keeping this at the top of the agenda. You give us life, you give me life, and I want to thank you for that. Now, let's call it what it is. This is patriarchy. This is misogyny. This is oppression. Who the hell am I as a man to tell a woman what the hell she can do with her body? Unfortunately, because America was founded by a white patriarchy, women, like black people, like the LGBTQ community, we've had to fight for justice since the beginning of America. But we are not fighting alone. We are fighting in solidarity with each other to push back against this oppressive system that continues to take reproductive rights away from our women. That is unacceptable, that is evil, and that is inhumane. And some of you may think my dearest bill to expand the court is a pipe dream, it's a naivete. I think it's innovative and I think it's brilliant. And I think it's exactly what we need in 21st century America. Because guess what? This conservative Supreme Court will uphold what happens in Texas and will uphold what happens across the country if we don't do something about it. And Congress has the power to do something about it. And that's why the House passed the Women's Health Act production, I'm sorry, the act to make sure women have a right and access to health care and reproductive rights. The House passed it. My dear and I passed it in the House in September, but it has not passed the Senate. And the Senate needs to do its job to get it to the president's desk. So it's on all of you and all of us to make sure Senator Chuck Schumer and Senator Gillibrand continue to fight to make sure this bill passes the Senate and it goes to the president's desk. Now, when we're talking about women's rights, unfortunately, it's not just about reproductive rights. It's about equal pay for equal work. It's also about making sure other women, disproportionately black, brown, and immigrant, in the healthcare system and our care providers are paid a living wage. It's also, as we all know, about the maternal health crisis and the maternal morbidity crisis. We are the wealthiest nation on earth. And we lead the developed world in maternal morbidity for all women. And when we talk about black women, it's clear that there's systematic racism and systematic murder happening in our healthcare system when it comes to our black women. That ain't right. That is inhumane, that is evil, and we can and we must do something about it. So we are here today in love, in solidarity, fighting for justice, fighting for women's rights and women's health.
Yeah.
But we can't just be here today. We gotta be here tomorrow.
Yeah.
We gotta be here next week, next month, next year. Because my Mary and I can tell you, we see some craziness in Congress this year. The people who are fighting against this, they are fighting every day. Understand, they are right now in the living room somewhere, organizing, strategizing, and mobilizing every day to take away women's right to abortion, and women's right to health care, and anything else they can take away. They're doing that right now. But we are stronger than them.
Yes.
We are more united than them, and we are moving in love.
Yes.
And we will continue to move in love. God bless you. I love you.
My choice. My choice. My voice. My choice. My voice.
When is the next election?
November 2nd.
Thank you. So I ask everybody here to
That's
go
right.
vote on November 2nd.
Yes. Woohoo.
We just had a primary. Dismal turnout. Dismal. We must vote in every election and watch your judicial candidates. Watch them. What are you going to ask them about choice and what? Okay, we'll work on it. It's my pleasure now to introduce Vincent Russell, who is the president and CEO of the Planned Parenthood Hudson Paternal Action Fund. And I want to thank all of our sponsors. Vincent and the Action Fund work to advance access to sexual health care and to defend reproductive rights. It is the advocacy arm of Planned Parenthood Hudson Paternal, which has 10 healthcare centers serving over 31,000 patients across Westchester, Rockland, Putnam, and Suffolk counties. With the sexual and reproductive health care they need, he is joined by an emerging leader and young advocate for Planned Parenthood, who he will introduce during his remarks.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here to protect safe and legal abortion. I'm Vince Russell, President and CEO of the Planned Parenthood Hudson Peconic Action Fund. And for those who don't know what we do, we are the nonpartisan, nonprofit organization that advocates for social welfare and legislative issues that impact the patients of and the services of Planned Parenthood Hudson Peconic. PPHP's primary purpose, Hudson Action Fund's primary purpose, is educating voters about public policies that impact sexual and reproductive health, and that includes abortion. In the dead of the night, the Supreme Court felled millions of Texans and turned back on 50 years of precedent, rendering Roe v. Wade practically meaningless in Texas. The Supreme Court allowed Texas's unconstitutional 6-week abortion ban to go into effect. This sue thy neighbor law means people who help or intend to help someone get an abortion after 6 weeks in Texas can be sued for up to $10,000. That individual could be a relative, a distant neighbor, someone from out of state, or their abuser. Many Black, Latina, Indigenous, those with low incomes, and people in rural areas will be most drastically impacted by these greatest barriers. This is a travesty for the nearly 7 million women of reproductive age in Texas that no longer have access to abortion care. As I said, right now abortion is virtually inaccessible for patients in Texas. Patients are being forced to travel out of state to get an abortion or carry pregnancies to term against their will. On the ground, abortion providers aren't able to schedule appointments for anyone that's past 6 weeks. They're taking phone calls and having to redirect. Those patients have to find the means to travel, find childcare, and also take time off work. Again, creating barriers to care. In fact, a patient recently traveled here to New York to Suffolk County from Texas to access care for a termination pregnancy. Some people will find out this week they're pregnant and they won't have the ability to make a meaningful decision about their future, a right they've had for almost 50 years. We shouldn't have to be doing this today. This is the loudest alarm yet that abortion rights are in grave danger in Texas and across the country. This bill is extreme and is part of a national agenda to end access to abortion in this country. This Texas law sets a dangerous legal precedent that overrides people's constitutional rights. We're already seeing copycat bills being pledged in other states, such as Florida and Arkansas, and with nearly 600 restrictions introduced in 2001, is the worst year for state legislative attacks on abortion since Roe. The Supreme Court is hearing a Mississippi case on December 1 that could render Roe v. Wade meaningless. And it's important to remember, Roe is the floor, not the ceiling. Reproductive rights advocates like you and abortion providers across the country are already preparing for what a post-Roe world may look like. We're lucky to be here in New York to have the Reproductive Health Act. To protect a person's ability to access abortion. But if people can't afford it, that's still a barrier to care. That's why we need you to contact your state legislators and express your support for New York State establishing an abortion access fund. Now, I would like to introduce Planned Parenthood Hudson McConaughey Action Fund patient advocate and member of its Emerging Leaders Council, Cassie Kluicki.
Hi everybody, thank you for coming out to support. It feels good to know that so many people support me and people like me who have had an abortion. I wanted to share my experiences with having an abortion in a red state a few years ago. So I was living in rural Arizona and I found myself on food stamps, pregnant, in a dangerous situation with my partner, and I decided to have an abortion. I had to travel 4 hours away from my home to have the procedure. There was a mandatory waiting period, which meant I had to, well, first of all, I had to lie to my boss and make up a story about why I couldn't go to work for 2 days instead of 1, miss that income when I needed it. And I had to stay in the home of my abuser because, you know, he was the one responsible for the pregnancy and I didn't have another option. Sorry, I'm kind of nervous, but this is awesome that so many people are here. I had to deal with a mandatory doctor conversation where the doctor was instructed to lie to me by law. So basically he told me a bunch of stuff about the heartbeat, and then he was like, legally I have to say this, but as a doctor I can tell you that it's not true. I had to have a transvaginal ultrasound, which at the time I didn't even know what those were, and the only ultrasound technician was a man. I was told if I wanted a woman I'd have to wait a few more days and I didn't have time. And for the aftercare I was supposed to be on bed rest and I ended up sleeping in a car. And that experience radicalized me and made me want to fight for other women to have a better experience than what I had. Because, you know, what happened for me had nothing to do with our ability to provide healthcare in this country. It had to do with who policymakers in that state value as people, like as human beings. So I keep fighting because despite the barriers I did face, I could rely on Planned Parenthood for the care I needed. And I want women who come after me to have access to the same health care and support that I had access to, and in some cases, I want them to have an easier time than I did. I know how high the stakes are because I lived it. When I look at Texas today, I think about my own experiences with state laws adding to the trauma of an already painful experience. And I'm sad because the new law puts women in an even worse position than I was in. So we're here today, and we're going to continue to fight every day for the right to determine our own reproductive futures.
Yes!
So if for you, if that means donating to a local abortion fund in Texas, Mississippi, or even to the New York Abortion Fund, then definitely do that. I'm someone who has benefited from an abortion fund, so I know how important they are. If support means calling your New York State legislator to encourage them to pass the Abortion Access Fund, which would help Planned Parenthood financially support their patients, then definitely do that. Just because abortion is legal in New York doesn't mean it's accessible for everyone. And fighting also means listening to your friend or family member or co-worker who wants to share their abortion story with you. You know, everybody loves someone who's had an abortion, and it's important that we hear them now in this moment. So a lot of my friends think that this law in Texas doesn't affect us because we have some strong protections here in New York. But I'm here to tell you that anything happening in this country regarding abortion rights affects all of us. So we need to stand united and work to make abortion legal and accessible here and across the country. So thank you, everyone.
About choice and what else? Access. A little better. It is now my pleasure to introduce one of the organizers for this event and a staunch advocate and a wonderful person. I'm so glad to know her and to get to know her better. Milagros Loophole.
Thank you very much. One more time, we women are under attack. And they are using this political agenda to attack us again. No doubt that it's not going to stop there. The agenda is not going to stop at the abortion, and it's not going to stop at women. But look at the energy here today. So there is hope. Good for you. And mostly because we have a younger generation that is not going to stop fighting for their rights. And that's why we have here today Amy Vélez. She's an Ecuadorian American, a strong community leader, fighting for immigrants' better immigration laws, and the youngest, at 26, the youngest candidate for Common Council for the city of Pigskin.
I heard someone yell murder. And while I understand that there are people here who do not agree with what we are advocating for today, I refuse to be shamed for a choice that I made on my own. It's my body and it's my choice. Yes. My body, my choice. My body, my choice. Today I want to speak similarly to the individual who was just here today,
to many of the young women who have also had abortions, and to the women who know somebody, who have experienced it themselves. It is a very difficult choice. I think people think it's an easy decision or you just forget like it ever happened, but it is trauma, it is pain that lives with you forever. And that's something that nobody else can really understand unless you have been through that experience. But like I said, I refuse to be shamed for something that I decided to do for myself. I knew I wasn't ready. I want to have a family, but I'm ready when I can support somebody. That's what we all want. That choice is something that we can only decide for ourselves. And more than anything, in order for us to destigmatize abortions, we need to have these conversations, share our stories, feel comfortable enough to do so. And the fact that there's so many people here, regardless of whether you're a man or a woman, however you choose to identify, we have this amazing group here of individuals who truly do understand what it means to go through something and to be supportive of somebody else. So please just applaud yourselves, because it's important. I'm really glad that there's a space for people to come forward and say, this is what happened to me. And I hope that you all go home and speak to the people who you know who have gone through this experience and just have that space for somebody. Because you never know, you could walk by somebody, you might know somebody you don't even know has had one. And the fact that women go around every single day feeling like they can't express themselves or even say that this is part of who they are, because the reality is, it is. No matter how little you choose to share that story, or whether you choose to keep it to yourself, that is something that stays with you. But I really do hope that we continue to share our experiences in order to destigmatize abortions and just have better health care in general, but reproductive rights for women. Yes. We need it. We need it. Yes. I refuse to be shamed for choice I made. Yes. My body, my choice. My body, my choice. Thank you. Every single one of you for being here today, because it is so important that we share that for each other in our community. Thank you.
I just want to thank the interpreters and translators that are translating into American. Some kind of technology where these words can be translated in every language. But thank you. It is now my pleasure to introduce Donna Barkman. Donna lives in Austin. She is a writer, an actor, playwright, and poet. She regularly writes and performs her solo plays in New York City and the Hudson Valley.
She looks familiar, but no.
Her poetry has appeared in the Westchester Review, Boston Literary Review, Chattahoochee, and other publications. Currently teaching children's literature at Bank Street College in New York City. She is a longtime feminist, activist, and advocate for reproductive health care and abortion rights. Donna.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can you hear me all right? A little closer, okay. I came here today to talk about myself. I was asked to do that. So that's what I'm going to do. What? Oh.
Yeah.
How's that? To talk about my illegal abortion. And I'm more than willing to do so. I would say women are still hesitant, except we had some legislators recently who did say that they had had abortions. But mostly women do not talk about it. And so here I am, ready to tell you about mine. I'll keep it short, even though it wasn't a short procedure. What? Louder? Yeah. Okay, louder.
Speak right into it.
In 1972 or so, I asked 8 friends if they had had abortions. We're talking about 1972. And 6 of them said that they had either legal or illegal abortions. I want to describe the whole scene to you of what each one said, but I won't. The one I remember most was the woman who said she had had 2 abortions that she had done herself. I asked her, how did she do that? And she said, you find the thinnest hanger you can. Now we talk about hangers, that's a symbol for abortion, but we kind of don't really believe that happens, but it does. And she had committed, let's say a terrible word, abortion on herself twice with a hanger. Now, a preface to my own illegal abortion: I was not raped, it was not bloody, it was not back alley, but it was hard enough. You have to go back. Some of you probably remember the 1950s and the 1960s when there was no sex ed, when you didn't say the word pregnant, forget abortion, you didn't say pregnant. You said expecting, or in the family way. I don't know, any of you here in the family way, or expecting? But maybe you don't want to admit it even now. Now, an 8-year-old child, let me look for one. No, you're not. There was a very young child here, but they're always expecting. They're always expecting something, a lollipop, a piece of pizza, the bunny rabbit. They're always expecting something, but not this, because they didn't know anything about it. Finally, the wife of my much older brother revealed the secret of what expect was with her bulging stomach. How it got into her, I didn't know, and I didn't know for years. When I was 11 or 12, my older sister caught me looking in the Encyclopedia Britannica. Do we still even have those? And I was looking up the word rape. She caught me looking up the word rape. And she said, "You are a nasty little girl." And now I am a nasty old woman. I got in college wasn't much better than that I had received in elementary and high school. In a late night, we used to call hen sessions. Oh, I'm supposed to hurry. Oh dear, I have to hurry. Well, I'll skip this part. I was seeing a man, I was in the theater then, and was working in the summer tent, you know, the tent that they used to have out in the country where they did musicals. Maybe they don't have them anymore. And I fell in love with somebody, and we quickly were sleeping together, and I more than quickly got pregnant. It wasn't long before my period stopped, and I didn't really know anything at that point about contraception, obviously, or I would not have conceived. So I didn't know anything. I bought a cheap red wedding ring. I went to a doctor. I had a test, and he said, "Congratulations, dear." And I knew I was pregnant. I told the man, he was a TV star, actually, and I was besotted with him. And he went to not the encyclopedia, but to a group of prostitutes that he knew. thinking and knowing that prostitutes would know how to get an abortion, and in fact they did. And I was sent to a pharmacist who had medical training, and he was very good, really. But he inserted something in my cervix without any pain relief and told me to wait, and soon something would come out of there. Nothing came out of there, even for a few days, so I went back, and this time I went to his apartment, which was fine. It was clean. It was nice, except that there was a crow flying around. He had a loose crow that was cawing while he was sticking something, I didn't know what, into my cervix. Finally, some cramps, something was expelled, and I went off to New York City, where a friend made sure that I was fitted with a diaphragm. Do we still have those? So I didn't get pregnant again until I was married, and I've had 3 children, and I'm divorced, and I'm happy. And that was after Roe versus Wade, and now, and I'll conclude in a minute, our rights are being taken away, day by day, minute by minute, law by law. We've already talked about Texas, and you know about Texas and what's going on there. And we must now never go back to the days when you tried to find the thinnest anger that you could, because we want to maintain abortion as safe and legal.
Let's send a round of applause for Donna. It is always a pleasure to sit at the feet of our elders and those who have been fighting this fight so we would have an easier time of it. So I don't mind acquiescing and giving time to our elders, our senior warriors like Donna. Again, thank you to the sponsors that helped make this event possible. Thank you to all of the elected officials. They're all over the place and too many to name. But you better remember their faces when they come and ask for your support. Because they are supporting you. It is now my distinct honor and pleasure to introduce several elected officials that have been on the forefront of so many issues, and particularly this issue. First, I want to introduce my friend, Mayor Sean Patterson Howard of Mount Vernon, the Jew of Westchester County.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
We are here because there is an attack on women's reproductive rights. There is an attack on choice. There is an attack on Black women, brown women, and women who are poor. There is an attack, and we cannot ignore it. So I'm going to say this, and just listen for a second. Giving honor to Christ, who is the head of my life, and who I love and who loves me and draws me every day. And with that being said, let me be clear, I'm not pro-abortion, but I am pro-choice. I am pro-choice. We must make sure that we are creating the narrative. We have allowed for too long for many Christians or those who are religious to say to be pro-choice is pro-abortion. It's not. It's pro-choice. I see a sign that says black babies matter. And they matter. Because I have one. And I was one. Black babies have to matter not only when you want to block abortion clinics. Black babies must matter when they're hungry. Right. Black babies must matter. Black babies, hold on, because I don't have a lot of time and I need us to hear this more than the applause. Black babies must matter when they're undereducated. Black babies must matter when we don't have clean and affordable housing. Black babies must matter when they've gone through the foster care system, or they have gone through trauma and they grow up in a criminal justice system. And when you go from being pro-life to pro-death penalty, when they've done something wrong and they've found themselves in the criminal justice system, we can't choose and pick and choose when life matters. If my life matters at conception, it has to matter straight through. Black and brown babies must matter when they've been left to rot in foster care systems. If black babies matter, then please go adopt a black baby. If black babies matter, please go mentor a black baby. And if black babies matter, please pass the human infrastructure bill on the Capitol for $3.5 million. Because our black babies need to be educated. They need equity in education and childcare. They need equity in housing. Their mothers need equity in pay. As a black woman and as a black young adult, I had to make a hard decision. And I had the choice to make it. And I had an abortion. And it is nothing that I am proud of, but it is nothing that I am going to allow anyone to shame me for either. Because I serve a God who forgave me. And I serve a God who continues to draw me with love and not with judgment. And so saying that, too many of us know women who laid on kitchen tables and who went in back alleys. I saw too many of my classmates, and too many days I walked into the bathroom in school and saw puddles of blood in the bathroom, and we knew what that meant. We cannot go back to those days. We cannot make people be ashamed for making a choice, because it is their choice, it is their bodies, it is their decision. And we have some choices coming up. We have early voting, and we have regular voting, and you have to go out. Those who are wrong are very passionate about their wrong. And those of us who stand on the side of right must be passionate about our right. So we have to vote in local elections, regional elections, national elections, and we must march, we must stand, we must love, and we must continue to use our power and our vote and our voice to lift up what we need. It is our bodies, it is our right, it is our choice. God bless you. Continue to push forward. Amen.
The days of marching are over, guys. How many of you have marched before? I've seen you. I've been with you. We are now at the day of reckoning. When Roe became law, we marched, but we weren't afraid. Today, I am afraid. I want to go back to 1969. My lower middle class neighborhood in Brooklyn. Meyer Levin Junior High School, 9th grade. Yolanda, good friend, became pregnant. 10th grade, she wasn't there. We watched her stomach grow, and she disappeared. 9th grade education doesn't do it, folks. And that's what's going to happen to the girls in Texas and the girls in Mississippi and the girls, God help us, in other states.
Especially in Catholic school.
And let me tell you about one more young girl in 9th grade. She was raped. She was a political junkie and used to go to what we used to call the club in Brooklyn. That's how they organized politics. And one day, her usual ride home wasn't available. So Steve Beam, nephew to the then upcoming mayor, drove her home and raped her. That 14-year-old girl didn't get pregnant, but it impacted her entire life. And now that young girl is standing before you, and she is a New York State Assembly member, and I am never going to be satisfied. I am never going to be satisfied until every single young woman from Texas and Mississippi can come to my state. And you know what? I have introduced a bill to make it so that any New Yorker who helps any young girl means that they will never have to give up, that their properties are protected. I said to myself, what can I do? Because now the day of reckoning is here. What can I do? I can pass a law to protect you, to help those girls. So let's bring them here. Let's raise money. Let's bring them here to our state. We cannot sit back and march anymore. Marching is over. Action is what we have to do. Thank you.
The next elected official is in office because a bunch of New Yorkers said we've had enough. And we want the Reproductive Health Act passed. That was back in 2018. A lot of you remember. We were knocking doors, we were marching, we were doing all kinds of things because we wanted New York to be accessible to reproductive health care and contraceptive accessibility for all. So it is my distinct pleasure to introduce Senator Alessandra Biaggi, who is an activist in office. They exist. Activists in office exist. She is my friend, and when you have an activist in office, they propose legislation and they fight until it gets passed. So without further ado, the closer. Senator Alessandra Biaggi.
I am so moved by what Assemblymember Paulin just shared that I almost can't find words to share with all of you. But for those of you who know me, I, of course, will have a lot of words to share. I want to go back to 2018, when a few of us dared to challenge the status quo. When a few of us dared to say, not in New York, not in a progressive state are we going to allow people in positions of power to steal our voice, to prevent Roe v. Wade from being codified,
not in New York. And when we all came together, because we did, whether it was behind the scenes or whether it was out in the streets or on the phones or texting or postcarding, not only did we win, we changed Albany forever. And why did that matter? It mattered because the Reproductive Health Act was at risk. New York State was a state that almost didn't codify Roe v. Wade. We were so close in the era of Trump to not protect a woman's right to choose because 8 people took it upon themselves to say that they were more important than 20 million New Yorkers' rights. And we said no. And then what did we do? We passed the Comprehensive Contraceptive Coverage Act. We passed the BOSS bill. We passed sexual harassment laws in Albany that are the strongest in the entire nation, in a place that has been known to be rife with harassment and abuse and assault on women and people, because the system has refused to stand up. And now, there's so much more to do. We have the Abortion Access Fund. And I'm going to share with you a little anecdote as to why this is so important and why your vigilance and our collective vigilance cannot stop. Last year, we set out on a mission to pass it through the Senate and the Assembly. And we were told, this is a little too controversial this year. Maybe we want to back off. What happens when we are not vigilant? Our democracy is taken away from us. Our choice is taken away from us. We know the power of New York State. New York State is a reproductive sanctuary state. It is the place that other states look to for guidance and for leadership and for safety. It is the place that the rest of the world is looking to for guidance and protection and for safety. And in New York, passing the Abortion Access Fund will provide funds to make abortion not only a right, but also accessible. It will provide for things like transportation and childcare and funding for the service itself. It is essential, and it is what New York can do next. But that's not all we can do. In New York, we have something called the Voluntary Intoxication Loophole for rape, which means that if you go out and have a drink or two and are raped, prosecutors cannot bring a case for victims of rape. We are being, yes, it is true. Other states have closed this loophole, Mississippi and Minnesota. Not Mississippi, Minnesota. That would be very wild. In fact, that would be embarrassing. And with the same amount of fervor that we take to every time there's an election, every time there is an action, every time there is a bill, every time there is a person, every time there are objectives, we must continue to do. We heard Assemblywoman Paulin talk about the end of marching. So what I'm going to leave you with is this. Think about your ritual of democracy. Think about what you are good at, what you are powerful doing, and then bring others in with you and enroll them to make sure that we have to and are able to protect our right to choose. Because yes, it is a woman's right to choose, but this is also an issue that affects trans individuals, and we have to make sure that their voices are risen up as well, and stop taking no for an answer and fight back. Thank you.
All right, as we come to a close, I'm remiss as someone who works with survivors, all of the stories that were shared today should be honored with love and integrity, and thank you for being so vulnerable to all the people that shared their personal testimonies. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I would also be remiss if I did not thank all of the men that are standing side by side and shoulder to shoulder. Thank you to all of the men that support a woman's right to choose and access for gathered here. There is an election November 2nd. Early voting starts October 23rd. Get yourselves together. And when an elected official asks you for your vote, you're going to ask them for what? Where do they stand on and
access?
When a judicial candidate asks for your vote, you're going to ask them where they stand on choice and access. So it's my pleasure to bring up this whole steering committee, sisters, warrior women who make this possible. Turn the mic over to Margaret.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so very much for coming. I've got a list of elected officials that came. So many of you wanted to support us, and not everyone got a chance to speak. So I wanted to thank Mary Jane Shimsky, Terry Clements is here, Nancy Barr, Vidit Gashi, Colin Smith, Catherine Parker, Damon Marr, Ruth Walter. Some of those people have elections, so get your shit together and start voting. And you should be canvassing, and there's some tables back there, and I will find you. I can see all of you, and if I don't see you signed up for canvassing, I will hunt you down. Okay, and then also we have Chris Burdick, we have Amy Pollin who spoke. Thank you so much. And Pete Harcum from the State Senate was here, and also, speaking of another election, again, if I don't see you canvassing, I will hunt you down. And that is George Latimer, who is here. And then our wonderful county deputy executive, Ken Jenkins, is here as well. And if we forgot you, we love you, and there's just so many people here, we probably couldn't get to all of you. Oh. And the interpreters, yes, my goodness. And I will, Jody and, anyway, the interpreters were wonderful. And so we wanted to extend a special thank you to our interpreters. Sorry. Jody and Donna.
Mona.
Come here. Okay. All right, and one last little piece that we've got is some information about the state ballot initiatives, and those of us that are here hearing about how the tyranny of the minority would like to, are you telling me to stand here, yes. Kim? This is my political wife, sorry. If you've heard about the tyranny of the minority and of many things that we need to have to do, one of them is to get rid of the filibuster. There's going to be information about how to help Mandir and Jamal get it done. And then also there are state ballot initiatives. The steering committee here would say please vote yes on each of them. There's one about environmental rights. There's one about, two about access to voting. And there's one about reapportionment of the committee. And the last one is about New York City. You all don't have to worry about that.
I would like also to thank the White Plains Police Department for their presence here today. Thank you.
All right, and with that, I want you to go find the camera lady Kim and sign up to canvass and do whatever it is. What are we going to say? One last chant, Tasha?
When women's rights are under attack, what do? Stand up, fight back. What do? Stand up, fight back. What do? Stand up, fight back. When women's rights are under attack, what do? Stand up, fight back. What do? Stand up, fight back. What do? Stand up, fight back. My body, my choice. My vote, my choice. My body, my choice. My body, my choice. My vote, my choice. My body, my choice. My vote, my voice. Yes, my vote, my voice. When's the election? November 2nd. Early voting starts October 23rd. You've already heard about the ballot points on the ballot. Bring a friend, tell a friend. Go vote in these local elections. Go vote in these local elections. Woo! It's hard work. We're being challenged on every end. The candidates that speak for you need your support in every election. So thank you everyone for coming. Spread the word. Tell a friend to tell a friend. And call our senators. They won't do it unless we demand it. All power to the people. Call the senators. Schumer and Gillibrand. Thank you, everybody. Stay safe. Love one another.